Hey everybody, this is Shaban, and welcome to Should My Kid Play, where we cover a number of different games and we talk about how appropriate the game is for children, but also really how good it is for children. And this isn't a typical parent's guide where we just talk about, content or something like that, like, oh no, they're kissing or someone say a bad word. No, we talk about cognitive development, we talk about addictiveness, we talk about consumerism, we talk about all sorts of different things that are maybe beyond the typical type of parent's guide. And today we're going to be talking about Limbo, an old game that came out in 2010. But you know what? If your child comes home to you, or if you yourself are interested in a game and you see that it's on sale, and you want to decide, oh, you know what, is this game going to be good for my child? Or maybe if you hear your kid talking about how their friends play a particular game, and you're deciding whether you want to think that this is a good game for them, check out Should My Kid Play and see if maybe this is a good game for you to get. All right, cool. So the game we're going to be talking about today here is a game called Limbo. This game came out in 2010, so this was actually kind of at the start of the new indie game golden era after Flash. And as you can see, it's just a platformer, but it's a puzzle platformer. And you'll notice right away, in fact, you might just have seen the thumbnail or seen this, and you're like, I don't know if this is going to be okay for my child. But hold on, okay? Just hold on. Bear me out here, because maybe this game is better than you think it is. Right away, you can tell that the tone is extremely dark, right? It's like, is that a child being hanged? Like, what the heck? Yeah, I know. Like, right at this point, I don't know if I'm going to be able to convince you of getting this game if that already is too scary for you, but that's okay. You know what? If you know your child, if you think that this is just going to freak them out and give them nightmares, then, don't get it. But you know what? Spoiler alert. There are going to be spoilers, by the way. Spoiler alert. This game is actually really good. It's really actually much better. I would say it's better for their brain than almost anything that you can get on, the Google Play Store or like the iPhone store or something like that. And I'll explain why as we go. But first, we can see that this game, it's full of puzzles, and these puzzles are just really well designed. Okay, like they're very clever, and they're different than you would typically expect from a puzzle platformer. So as you can see, what you're just trying to do is you're just trying to get from point A to point B. But here's the thing about this game. Point A and point B aren't just like, hey, you started this level, you finished this level. The whole game is just like one go. Okay, so it's the end is, getting to the very end. See, notice how I avoided getting chomped by that bear trap. So here's the thing about this game. If I just cut to the chase, the only thing that I think is really questionable about the game with respect to like a child is just how the tone is very dark. There's no real music in the background, no catchy themes. There's not really any point in the whole game where you catch a break, where you feel like, oh, okay, we're at the serenade of delightfulness. That never happens in this game. And worse yet is that you can't a lot of games nowadays are easy enough that you never have to lose, right? You're given 5,000 hit points, and but this game you're guaranteed to lose. And not only are you guaranteed to lose, you lose in the most dreadful ways possible. I mean, look at this. This is pretty horrifying. Because a lot of times you cannot know how to complete a puzzle until your character dies. And your character, by the way, is a little boy. So holy moly, if you are, maybe at this point you've seen enough children dying in your feeds, maybe this game is not, maybe you should take consider a different game for a little while. See, whoa, I was able to avoid that because I had reflexes. But here's the thing, not always is it a matter of reflexes. Not always is it a matter of am I smart enough to not get killed by the puzzle? Sometimes the puzzle kills you and there's really nothing you can do about it. Okay, and sometimes the puzzle will kill you in such a way that that the puzzle, this is supposed to be just kind of spooky. What are you doing? What's going on? Is this a big giant spider? Because before this point in the game, you saw spider legs. But the thing about it is I'm getting foiled by the simplest puzzle in the whole game. It's is this even a puzzle? I came up, oh my gosh, what a jerk. What? Pushing kids over and stuff? Man, that's almost worse than letting the kid get stomped by a... Okay, then, what is that guy? Who knows? Alright, very cool. Let's keep going. So, with this game is that sometimes you can tell, like, oh, that's what I was supposed to do, and you just have to sit there watching the kid die. Like, you know, you have to wait like 5 seconds for like the rest of the death to happen, and it's can be pretty dreadful. Like, and there's no real way to like pause it and like say like, no, go to last checkpoint. That's almost like cruel. Like, you can't go, like, see, if I hit pause, there's no go to last checkpoint. There's load chapter, but load chapter doesn't take you to the last checkpoint. It can take you several like checkpoints back. Like a whole chapter has like maybe several checkpoints in it. So the best thing for you to do is just sit there waiting for the kid to die in some of these situations. I'll show maybe one of these situations here in a little bit. But anyway, so as you can see, you can just kind of move around. You can see it's like there's not a lot of puzzles happening. Some of this game is not really puzzles, but rather you're just absorbing the environment and the artwork that's going on in the game. So let me talk now a little bit about some of the other elements of the game to consider as I'm just kind of walking through here. What are children doing on a noose like this? Why? Come on. The person who made this game is called Arndt Jensen, and I think he's like crazy because what? Like, what possessed him to do this? But one of the things that I want to point out, as I'm just like letting you see this kid just get murdered, is that sometimes games or movies or whatever are like, watch this. See that? No chance were you gonna know that that was gonna happen. Like, look at that. Like, what? Who notices that there's a second bear trap? There's no way. All right. So anyways, you could have the smartest kid in the entire world. Nope. And like, if you try to run away from it, no way. Like, you're gonna get killed several times every time. Like, it's just awful. See, okay, I'm triggering it, and then I have to actually put forward through it, and then I'm like, oh no, and then I get stopped because it's like, well, dang it. Like, how am I supposed to? All right, so this happens a lot. There's a lot of dying. Anyway, Arndt Jensen, like, one of the things that you ask when you're talking about any piece of media is like, are they making this just for money, or is there some other kind of motivation? So in this game, it's one of those rare few games that you really don't feel like they made it for money. Okay, this game clearly took an incredibly long time to put together. Okay, there's just so much thought into it. It's so inspired, I think, the art, and there really haven't been many games since then that are quite this inspired in terms of the visual storytelling. So, oh, look at that, the spider's back. All right, this is what I'm talking about. You know, this game, like, it seems like he made it for art reasons. And you know what? There's a lot of the history of this game that would seem to agree with that. For example, when this game was starting to get noticed, maybe it was getting some money. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like, this game first came out on Xbox 3. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, there's nothing I'm gonna do other than watch a spider murder a child. Like, there's nothing else to do once I blow it. Is that he you know, signed a deal with like Microsoft Game Studios to get this on Xbox 360, and they were like, hey, how about you like make him not a boy? So it's like, give him a mustache, and they were like, nah, we're not going to do that. We're like, can you put multiplayer, because multiplayer is good? And they were like, nope. And they were also like, hey, why don't you put like, you know, like, they tried all sorts of things to like make the game more conventional, you know, something that you would expect someone to want to play, but they were like, no, that's not the vision of the game. So every single time they turned it down. So that to me says that this is a game that's not just about the money. This is a game that's about the, you know, the artist's vision, and that's usually a good sign. So very cool. The other things I want to point out is the things that I would say are more important for like a child's development, at least at this point especially. And that's like, how addictive is this game? Is a child going to get like obsessed with this game? Are you going to get obsessed with this game? I mean, we're all children, right? I mean, technically. So yeah, but here's the thing. Unlike many modern games, it would be very difficult to get addicted to this game. There is a clear end to this game. There's a start, and then there's a finish, and then that's it. The only reason why you would want to play the game again, I guess, is for like the artistic value. Maybe if you're trying to go for all the achievements, and all the achievements are like, you just found this, like, you went to a weird part of the map. like a weird part of the level. Yeah, hooray! And once you've done all of those achievements, there's really not much of a reason, unless you're like a speedrunner. If your kid is like a speedrunner and gets like into speedrunning, this wouldn't even necessarily be a bad game to get into because it's a relatively short kind of game. Anyways, so, all right, so you can see like, hey, this is what I'm talking about by how like just grotesque, viscerally grotesque, like this like thing can still murder you, as you can see. It's like horrible. But watch how you defeat the spider here, okay? Again, spoiler alert. Is like you let him try to get you, and then you get him back. And look at this. It's like you're just watching it just slowly tearing its leg off with like blood and stuff. Ah! All right, but here's the thing. In order to be able to continue going, you can't just like, you know what, that was too spooky. No, you have to come back and actually roll the dead torso of the spider. Ah! And you're like, wait, how, like, where's this thing's gonna go? Is it gonna go to this pit of spikes? Yes, it's gonna put in this pit of spikes. Like, oh my gosh, guys. All right, yeah, so there's no downloadable content. There's no sequels other than that game Inside and maybe some other things like that. So like, there's not much of any vector in which like a kid would get obsessed or addicted to this game. Okay, so that right there is one of the major things that like I think makes it really approachable as a parent, because it's like they're not gonna get totally obsessed with it. Another one of the things that you want to think about as a parent is like if it's dinner time, if like it's bedtime, if it's hey, get the heck off the video game time, like how are you going to be able to say so? Like they're going to be like, no, the save spear is not there yet, or like I can't save it. So this game is relatively step awayable. Okay, so when I say relatively, I mean there are these checkpoints, right? But there's also these chapters, and so when you look at like load chapter, you'll see like that's where I was. I went through that. I did that. I did that. I did that, and then I got to here, right? So that's where I'm at. But you can see that like the spider's still alive and well here, and then the spider's totally dead by here. Like there's quite a bit that happened in between here, and so if you're like going for getting to the next chapter, there's gonna they might be like, hey, let me finish this thing, or let me finish this checkpoint, or whatever it might be. It's really not that likely to happen. Like they might be like, hey, I'm in the middle of a puzzle and I know how to solve the puzzle, and okay, some of these puzzles are relatively involved and they're kind of annoying to set up. Okay, they can get kind of annoying to set up, and so like it can take like 5 minutes to set it all up, and it could be really annoying if, like right away, hey, I have to catch the bus, because then you have to set it all up again once they get back to the game. And so yeah, but it's compared to most many other games, it's very easy to step away from this game. It's very easy to just say like, okay, quit Limbo and then be done with it, and then just kind of pick back up at the last save spot. It's not that big. Okay, for like at least at this point. Okay, that there's no puzzle here, right? I'm not, so I'm right back to here. It's not one of these things where it takes like a lot of. So here I am just sitting here waiting for this dude to just like walk into the water and drown, so that they can be a platform for my character to jump. That's how like proper this game is. So all right, so this game, there's no consumerism, right? You're not like at risk of the child getting obsessed with the character and like looking for stuff at the at the store or Amazon, or their family members like getting them like weird apparel or something like that. This isn't like Roblox or Minecraft or any Nintendo game like that. Okay, here's one of these situations where like I think I know what's going to happen. I step on this and bad news. Well, I was right. So what am I supposed to do about that? Ooh, puzzle time. This is what I mean by these puzzles are not. Whoops. These puzzles are not conventional. But at the same time, they don't actually like. They're not totally out there that there's no way you're going to figure it out. They all really kind of revolve around a selection of things. Like there's some kind of thing that you can pull and push it somewhere, and it allows you to push a button or get on top of things. And it's kind of interesting. One of these things is kind of gross. I think that we've seen enough of this part of the game. I'm going to show you I guess, other parts of the game that are more puzzle oriented and perhaps also paint what I was trying to explain. Let's see, what's a good spot? Yeah, let's do this. All right, see. You're further in the game, the puzzles are a little bit harder. This is what I'm going to tell you about. Look, the whole world rotates. You can see that there's this kind of boulder right here. It's like, uh-oh. As soon as this rotates, I know that this boulder is going to chase me. At this point in the game, you figured this out. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to get over here. Now there's a light going, so it's like, oh, I can't see. I'm going to run down here. It's like, I need to get away from that boulder as fast as possible. And now look, you're like, uh-oh, I can't climb back up. So you're like, this is dread. You're like, I can't climb back up. I know the ladder's there, and I know the boulder's coming. You just have to sit here waiting for the just fate. You know, this is what I mean when I say that, like, the game can be dreadful in that sense. And if you can get past that, if you think that that's, you know, okay, then I think this is actually a great game. And let me explain why. So these puzzles that you see in this game are exactly the kinds of things that I think are great for the mental development of the child. I teach programming classes, and a lot of the students who come in, like, some are just like more ready to learn programming than others, and some of the students are like, I guess I'm just not cut out for programming. It's not that. It has nothing to do with how much programming experience they've had before. I think it has more to do with what puzzles experience they've had. Limbo, it's one of these kinds of games where if the child had, you know, played games like Limbo growing up, okay, it's like, what am I supposed to do? Okay, there's a block. Then they would be better at programming, because like a lot of these puzzles kind of require you to abstract some kind of notion of like the scenario, like what is going on in this particular situation. Just like you're setting up maybe a loop in programming, you don't have to worry about exactly how programming works necessarily, but you have these like a collection of variables, and you have to like make some kind of solution based on logic. And a lot of these games, and Limbo is not the only game like that. Whoops. Yeah, obviously. But it's games like this that I think really do help prepare a child for logic. And so I think this is a really good example of a game that I would recommend for anyone who wants their child to, you know, like build friggin' intelligence, right? But it's more than just that. So the content, like as you can see here, yeah, okay, there's violence, there's gore, there's blood, there's, you know, I mean, some of the stuff, like if I come in here and like look at this, like there's not a lot of blood, but there's quite a lot of gore. Okay, so like this is another example of something quite gory. See, here are these lasers, or like they're freaking machine guns actually. It'll shoot the child, and look, like, there's like, you know, the child is getting shot, and depending on how they're shot, like it can blow off limbs, can cut their head off. You saw how the bear trap was able to like blow off the kid's head. It's like these are really messed up kinds of things, and that imagery. Look at this. He's just getting decimated by this machine gun. Like, holy moly. However, you know, and so that could desensitize the child to this kind of thing, and that, you know, it depends on who you are and how much you think that's important. It could be very important to you. I'm just trying to expose you to it so you know that it's there. But for a child's mind, especially when it comes to like the logic type of stuff, they consider this to just be like a lose condition. Okay, I failed the puzzle, and then they go back in and they try to succeed the puzzle. They, you know, oops, I failed. And sure, there's like a little death animation, but once again, that's been desensitized in their head, it's no longer really a thing. Like, ooh, it was kind of, maybe it's a little shocking at first, but then afterwards, it's now just a puzzle, right? That happens to have some kind of little death animation that they now are desensitized to. Again, that's for better or for worse, but really the actual content of the game are the puzzles in terms of the gameplay. Once they've seen the death animation, that death animation is no longer really relevant to the game. And beyond just the fact that, you know, the puzzles are good for the child's brain, but it also, it's how ingenuitive, I guess, or is that the right word? These puzzles are. They were clearly, they put a lot of effort into these puzzles. They're very clever. And so the child is exposed to design where there's a lot of attention to detail. The art is also, like, if your child is artistic, this can be an inspiring kind of game. Notice how the game is entirely monochrome, okay? Like, they were able to create an engaging game, an immersive game, when all they had was just basically 2D graphics and totally monochrome. Okay, like there's no color or anything like that. They're able to do that. So this kind of game is not just the type of schlock you get off the shelf and you're like, hey, ugh, like this game looks like it was thrown together in a day. But rather it exposes your child to like what is possible, I think, in game design and art design. Very cool. So I think those are things to consider. The writing and the story are a little avant-garde. There's not really a story. Okay. The only characters. Whoops. No, that's not the only characters are the player character. You saw the little NPCs, those little like weird guys who are just trying to kill you or something. What is that? Anyways, there are those dudes, but other than that, like that's it. There's no words. So you don't have to worry about profanity. You don't have to worry about any of that. However, the story is like there is a story kind of, and the only real sense you get about what the story is from just like the description of the game in the store. It says like some boy is like looking for his sister or something. Like, okay, so the character that the other character, the girl character, is a sister, right? So it's not a love interest. So you don't have to worry about any romance stuff. There's no romantic implications or anything like that. These characters are like really young anyways, and spoiler alert, you only see the sister like 1.5 times. Why? You fell in the pit. Oh no. All right. The character is only the sister character is only, you only see her like 1.5 times, if I remember correctly. One of those times it's like maybe just an illusion, right? And second time is actually also maybe just an illusion. The end of the game, you're like, hey, I got to my sister, and then you get, again, spoiler, like turn off your ears, but like nothing about it is like conclusive, let's just say. It's left for the viewer to interpret, the gamer to interpret. As much as I can tell, they didn't like make it so like every time that anyone has asked them, hey, like what gives, like what is this about, like what was that ending about, every time the team was asked about that, they refused to answer. Like nobody knows to this day. And I guess some like academics are like, well, actually this is like a metaphor for like that, but I don't think there's any official explanation for what the heck happens at the end of the game. So there's not much of a story. There's no writing, like a dialogue or anything like that. And so what you see basically is what you get, right? There's not anything secret that I haven't like really shown you. Let's see. Now, as far as the difficulty of this game and the accessibility of the game, I would say that this game is, from a difficulty level, really not suitable for kids probably under 9 or 10, because I guess it depends how smart your kid is. If you got like a 6-year-old, there's no way they're doing these puzzles. They're going to be like, mommy, daddy, papa, someone help me with this puzzle. It's like, you're like 5 minutes into the game. What are you talking about? So yeah, like look at this puzzle. Like there's no way like some little kid is gonna figure this out. It's like, okay, I press a button, okay, cool, the things fly on the ceiling, there's 2 boxes, they go on the ceiling, and then look, there's a little timer underneath the button. I don't know if you can tell. It's like, what the heck, like what am I supposed to do? Even adults maybe will have trouble figuring this one out. I mean, what the Jimmy? Like, you come over here, you see, like, okay, to get to that ladder, it probably involves getting on top of a box, and you can see that the boxes go up when you press the button, but they both go up when you press the button. So it's like, well, how am I going to get up there if both of them did that? So it's like, oh, I know, I'm going to push it on one button, and then now I'm going to take it off the button, but now look, it still comes up. Like, okay, well, that doesn't solve the problem. I think that for most young kids, like, they're not going to be able to solve this, okay? Like, what they would have to figure out how to do now, granted, there's just not very much stuff in the environment, so like they can eventually kind of figure it out, which is kind of cool. I think that it makes you feel smart. Like, why would they have this ramp up here? There's never like, there's usually not like an area of the game where it's just there for no reason. Okay, so it's like, well, there's a reason there's a ramp, and it's like, oh, okay, I get it. So if I put that button all the way up there, it kind of becomes like a timer. So now, like, that block hasn't hit the button yet, I can now climb up here, and then by the time, I get over here, the block, the the crate or box or whatever goes to the ceiling, and we can wait for the timer to elapse for me to be able to push this over the ladder. See, like, you can see what I'm talking about. Like, you know your kid, you know how smart your kid is. I would say the kid probably has to be maybe at least 9 to be able to figure out these puzzles. And this is, regardless of like the content of the game, like, appropriateness of the game. But you can see it's not done yet, right? It's like I have to get up there now, right? And it's like, well, there's a ladder over here. What does this ladder do? And it falls down, and now you're like, and see how at this point it's just kind of like some cognitive fatigue. You're like, what? I just did a puzzle that was kind of tricky, and now you're just totally confusing it. It's like, what am I supposed to do now? And so, like, to be able to step back, see the whole picture, and figure it out. This is what I mean by it's really good, I think, cognitively for their brain, for logic, and, that type of thing. So, well, I have to get up there. How the heck am I supposed to do that? Right? So it's kind of tricky. Now, coming back here, so what I'm talking about, age accessibility, yeah, maybe 9, I would say. Now, as far as the content, again, there's no like romance stuff. There's nothing here. But once like, there's not going to be content. They're not making, as far as I know, there's not going to ever be downloadable content. This game came out for like the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and PC, and that's it. They're probably just working on other games. So you don't have to worry about like being blindsided by your kid being like, hey, look, there's a DLC called like The Kid Gets Married. Can I have that one? No, right? You don't have to worry about any of that. There's no online mode, so you don't have to worry about any of that, So like really, it's all just like a one complete package. If the game is too spooky or if it's just too violent, then there's that. Okay, so I talked already about a lot of stuff. There's kind of one last thing that I want to mention about the game. I don't really want it to go on too much longer. Is that as you can tell by the title, like, for some of you, this game might be too blasphemous. Okay, you know what I mean? Like this, you might consider this game to be a little blasphemous. Like I don't even remember how to do this puzzle, to be honest. This game might be, because like I mean the game is called Limbo, for goodness sakes. Like some of you, might consider it's like, hey, we shouldn't be like, making light of afterlife and stuff. Oh, I remember. So, whee! Oh my gosh, I almost got slammed. It's still too low for me to be able to get it. Oh, I know. So, it obviously there, the game is called Limbo, so there's themes of maybe this is like the afterlife. Is the kid dead? Is this like purgatory? Limbo, I'm pretty sure like derives from some Latin or some other thing having to do with edge, like, it's on the edge of the underworld or something like that. What am I doing? I clearly wasn't paying attention. If that makes sense. So like that you might consider that, I don't know, those themes might not be right, because if you like, you send your kid to church or something like that and they're like, we want to avoid limbo, so make sure to, do all the stuff you need to do to avoid it. You know what I mean? Like, you might be like, oh, what? The game? Oh, I love that game. Like, if that, even just the concept of like the game that might have to do with this is too much, well, then you probably didn't even click on this video. Like, it's called Limbo. You probably knew that this was probably a bad idea. All right, very cool. So yeah, my conclusion that I would have to give you is that content like profanity, relationships, drugs, and all that kind of stuff, is really just not present. Okay, so there's really not much for you to be worried about. And what you see in the first like 2 seconds of the game is enough to tell you whether you think the game is like appropriate for the kid or not. There's no like curveballs. Okay, the game is got a really dark tone. It's kind of got gore involved in it. And the concept, like the whole premise behind the game, is slightly blasphemous for some of you who are, sensitive to that kind of thing. Um, but other than that, like the story itself is like this kid seems to be trying to go to save his sister or like something about his sister. So there might be something chivalrous about that. The kid doesn't do anything like wrong. There's no real bad examples being done. Like this, there's like perseverance. Like this kid is going against all odds, climbing up junk and trying to like survive. So maybe there's something actually motivating about that. To be honest, So actually, there might be some good in there. Um, but the game is not addictive. I don't consider it addictive. It's relatively easy to step away from it. It is compared to a number of different games. It has really well designed puzzles. It has really great art direction. I think this game can be very inspiring. It's a nice game for a child to have played through at least once to be able to say it, because you know what? This game is kind of part of video game history. It won a bunch of awards. It was one of the first kind of big indie games after the Adobe Flash age. And so being able to say that they've played the game is probably something where they can feel like they're cultured or something like that. Hey, I played Limbo. It's like, what are you talking? You're like 10 years younger than that game. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, anyways. So yeah, I would recommend it personally. But if you think the game too spooky, well, I'm not telling you what to do. You're the parent. So thank you for catching this stream. If there's anything I missed, leave it in the comments. And if you have any other kind of game that you're thinking about getting your child, check back in to see if I've already done a review. And if you just like to watch these, then, sign up. I try to do these live streams. I guess depends on where you are in the world. Check to see when this one was released. It's probably going to be a similar time. All right, very cool. Thank you, and happy playing. Until then, until the next video, wishing you peace.